Rahim sat quietly on the bench outside the hospital. The morning sun had begun to shine softly, but its warmth could not reach the heaviness in his heart. Inside the room, his son, Sammy, lay on the bed. Sammy's small hands rested gently on the white blanket. He looked calm, but Rahim knew that calmness was mixed with sadness. The accident had changed everything. One wrong turn, one slip, and Sammy's life was never going to be the same again. The doctors had told him that his son might never walk again. Rahim could still remember the day of the accident. He had driven fast to reach the market, and a sudden rain had made the road slippery. Sammy had been riding his bicycle when a car lost control and hit him. The paramedics arrived quickly, and Rahim remembered holding his son's hand as they rushed him to the hospital. The days that followed were filled with pain, worry, and long nights. Rahim had cried silently while sitting in the waiting room. He had held Sammy's favorite toys and tried to comfort him, but the boy's bright smile had faded. Rahim often watched Sammy's eyes, searching for hope and seeing only sadness. He wanted to do something, anything, to bring joy back into his son's life. One afternoon, while Rahim was scrolling through his phone, he saw an advertisement that caught his attention. It was about a German Shepherd K9, trained to assist people with disabilities. The dog was described as intelligent, gentle, and very loyal. Rahim read about many children and adults whose lives had changed because of these dogs. They could help people move safely, carry small items, and provide emotional support. Rahim felt a spark of hope in his heart. Maybe this dog could bring happiness back to Sammy. Maybe he could be a friend and a helper at the same time. The next day, Rahim drove to the kennel where the German Shepherd lived. The sun was bright and the air was fresh. As he entered, he saw several dogs playing in a large open area. One dog, a strong and alert German Shepherd, sat calmly near the gate. His coat was shiny and his eyes were deep and expressive. As soon as Rahim approached, the dog wagged his tail slowly and pressed his head gently against Rahim's hand. It was as if the dog knew why Rahim had come. "This is Bruno," said the caretaker. "He is trained to assist people with disabilities. He is calm, intelligent, and very loyal." Rahim nodded. He could see that Bruno was different. There was something in his eyes, something that told Rahim that this dog could understand and care. Rahim returned home that evening with Bruno sitting quietly in the car. Sammy was in his wheelchair looking out of the window. When Rahim entered the room, he lifted Sammy into his arms and brought him to the living room. Sammy looked surprised when he saw Bruno. The dog walked slowly toward him, sniffing the wheelchair and then gently placing his head near Sammy's hand. Sammy's eyes widened. "He is beautiful," he whispered. Rahim smiled. It was the first word Sammy had spoken with excitement in a long time. Bruno seemed to understand his role immediately. He sat beside Sammy, watching him closely. When Sammy moved his hands or shifted slightly, Bruno moved closer, offering support. Rahim felt a wave of relief. Perhaps this was the beginning of something wonderful. The days that followed were filled with small discoveries. Bruno helped Sammy in ways that amazed Rahim. He could push the wheelchair slightly when Sammy's hands were tired. He could pick up small items that fell on the floor. He never barked loudly or jumped aggressively. Instead, he was calm, careful, and always attentive. Sammy began to smile more often. He spoke to Bruno, telling him stories about school, about friends, and about his dreams. Bruno listened patiently, as if he understood every word. Rahim watched his son slowly come back to life. He saw Sammy's laughter returning, first quietly and then more openly. Sammy began to have small routines with Bruno. Every morning they would go to the garden. Sammy would sit in his wheelchair while Bruno ran around, bringing sticks and balls for Sammy to throw. Even though Sammy could not run, he could still play in his way. He could still laugh, still feel joy, and still feel the world around him. One evening, Rahim decided to try something new. He placed a small ramp in the living room and encouraged Sammy to try moving slightly up the ramp with Bruno's help. Sammy was hesitant at first, but Bruno stood behind him, his strong body steady and supportive. Slowly, carefully, Sammy moved up a few steps. Rahim felt tears in his eyes. It was the first time he had seen his son move in a way that seemed close to walking. Sammy looked at Bruno and whispered, "Thank you." Bruno wagged his tail as if to say, "You can do more." The bond between the boy and the dog grew stronger each day. Bruno was not just a helper. He became Sammy's best friend. Sammy began to share his secrets, his fears, and his dreams with Bruno. At night, Bruno would sit beside Sammy's bed, watching over him while he slept. Rahim could sleep more peacefully knowing that his son had a loyal companion who would never leave him alone. Rahim also noticed something else. Sammy's confidence began to grow. He started trying small things on his own. He would reach for objects, try to move his wheelchair independently, and even help feed Bruno. The father felt proud and hopeful. The accident had taken so much from their lives, but Bruno had brought a new light. The home was no longer silent and heavy. It was filled with laughter, small victories, and the quiet bond between a boy and his dog. One afternoon, Rahim took Sammy and Bruno to the park. The sun was warm and birds sang in the trees. Sammy looked around and smiled. He rolled his wheelchair slowly while Bruno walked beside him, matching his pace. Children in the park watched in awe. They saw a boy and his dog, not ordinary, but something special. Sammy waved at them and they waved back. The world felt bigger and friendlier. Rahim knew that Bruno's presence was more than just helpful. Bruno gave hope, courage, and friendship. Sammy's eyes shone with a light that Rahim had thought was lost forever. Every small action Bruno made, from nudging Sammy to picking up a toy, felt miraculous. Rahim felt a deep gratitude that he had made the decision to bring Bruno into their lives. That night, as Rahim tucked Sammy into bed, he looked at Bruno lying quietly beside the boy. "Thank you, Bruno," he whispered. Bruno looked at him with his deep, understanding eyes, and Rahim felt that somehow the dog understood the words without them being spoken. Sammy reached over and patted Bruno gently. "You are my hero," he said. Bruno wagged his tail, as if to promise that he would always stay by his side. Rahim knew that the journey was only beginning. There would be challenges ahead, but with Bruno by Sammy's side, the boy had found a friend, a helper, and a source of courage. Rahim smiled softly, feeling hope fill his heart for the first time in many months. The bond between a father, a son, and a dog had started to change their lives. It was a quiet, gentle miracle, one that would grow stronger with each passing day. Rahim knew that with patience, love, and the unwavering loyalty of Bruno, Sammy could face the world again, and maybe one day walk in it too. The next morning, the sun rose gently over the city, filling the Rahim household with warmth. Sammy was already awake, his eyes bright with anticipation. He could hear Bruno moving quietly around the room, stretching and wagging his tail. Sammy smiled and reached for his friend. Bruno came immediately, nuzzling his head into Sammy's lap as if saying good morning. The boy laughed softly. The sound felt so rare and precious that Rahim paused in the doorway to listen. "Good morning, Bruno," Sammy said. His voice was calm but filled with joy. Bruno responded by gently licking Sammy's hand. It had become a daily ritual. Every morning they shared this small but powerful greeting. It was a bond that no words could fully describe. Rahim came into the room carrying a tray with breakfast. He smiled at the sight of his son and the dog together. "I think you two are the best team in the world," he said. Sammy laughed lightly, and Bruno wagged his tail as if he understood every word. After breakfast, Rahim suggested a new activity. He had read about small exercises that could help improve muscle strength for people with paralysis. Today he wanted to try them with Sammy and Bruno. Sammy looked at his father nervously. He was unsure if he could do it, but Bruno's presence gave him courage. Rahim placed a small ball in front of Sammy and asked him to reach for it. Sammy struggled slightly, but Bruno gently nudged the ball toward him with his nose. Sammy's face lit up as he grabbed it. "Bruno, you helped me," he said excitedly. Bruno barked softly in response, wagging his tail. For the next hour, they continued practicing simple movements. Sammy tried to reach higher, and Bruno assisted in small ways. Sometimes he placed his paw gently on Sammy's lap to help him balance. Sometimes he picked up objects that fell and brought them back. Every movement, every small success felt like a victory. Rahim watched in awe. He had never imagined that a dog could be such a source of encouragement and support. Later in the afternoon, Rahim suggested going for a walk in the park. Sammy had not been outside much since the accident. The wheelchair had made it difficult, and Rahim had feared that Sammy might feel embarrassed. But today, with Bruno by his side, Sammy felt brave. As they entered the park, children were playing and laughing. Some of them stopped to watch Sammy and Bruno. They saw a boy moving in his wheelchair with a strong and loyal dog walking beside him. Bruno stayed close, occasionally looking up at Sammy as if checking that he was safe. Sammy's heart felt lighter than it had in months. He started to move the wheelchair slowly along the path. Bruno matched his pace exactly. The dog stayed alert, ready to assist if needed. People in the park began to notice. A mother pointed to her child, whispering, "Look at that dog. He is helping the boy move." Sammy saw the curiosity in their eyes, but he no longer felt shy. He felt proud of Bruno, proud of himself, and proud of the bond they shared. He waved at the children, and some waved back. He realized that his world could still be full of friends and laughter. Rahim walked behind them, his heart swelling with hope. Seeing his son smile and interact with the world again was a blessing he had not expected so soon. Bruno's presence had changed more than just Sammy's daily routine. It had brought back courage, confidence, and a sense of normalcy. After the walk, they found a quiet spot under a large tree. Rahim sat on a bench while Sammy and Bruno rested on the grass. Sammy gently stroked Bruno's back, feeling the strong muscles beneath the fur. "I like you, Bruno. I feel like I can do anything when you are here," he said. Bruno responded with a soft bark as if agreeing. Rahim smiled. "He is more than just a dog, Sammy. He is your partner, your friend, and your helper. Together, you two can do wonderful things." Sammy nodded. He felt the truth in his father's words. Bruno had already become an important part of his life. The following days brought more discoveries. Rahim noticed that Sammy was trying to move slightly more in his wheelchair. Bruno was always there, steady and supportive. The dog seemed to understand exactly when Sammy needed help and when he needed encouragement. Sometimes Rahim would leave the room for a few minutes and Bruno would stay by Sammy's side, guiding him gently and watching over him. One evening, Rahim suggested they try a new exercise at home. He had placed a small ramp near the living room. Sammy hesitated at first. He looked at the ramp and then at Bruno. The dog seemed to sense Sammy's fear. He moved closer and nudged Sammy's hand gently. "You can do it," his eyes seemed to say. With Bruno's support, Sammy began moving up the ramp slowly. At first it was difficult. His hand shook slightly and he felt unsure. But Bruno stayed calm and steady behind him, providing support. Step by step, Sammy moved forward, encouraged by the dog's presence. Rahim held his breath, watching as Sammy made progress. Finally, Sammy reached the top of the ramp. He turned and smiled at Bruno, tears in his eyes. "I did it, Bruno. I did it," he exclaimed. Bruno barked softly and wagged his tail, proud of Sammy's achievement. Rahim felt a deep sense of joy. He realized that this small moment was significant. Sammy was gaining not just physical strength but also confidence and determination. The bond between Sammy and Bruno grew stronger each day. They shared meals together, played together, and rested together. Bruno became more than a helper. He became a companion, a source of comfort and a symbol of hope. Sammy began talking about dreams he had not thought about for months. He spoke about going back to school, playing with friends, and learning new things. Bruno was always there, silently supporting his every word and action. One night, Rahim sat beside Sammy's bed, watching the two of them. Sammy was gently patting Bruno, who was lying calmly by his side. "I think Bruno is my best friend," Sammy whispered. Rahim smiled, feeling the weight of months of worry lifting from his heart. "Not just your best friend, Sammy. He is part of our family now," Rahim said. Sammy nodded, holding Bruno close. The boy felt safe, loved, and understood. He realized that even though his legs could not carry him like before, he could still experience life fully with Bruno by his side. Bruno's presence also began to attract attention from neighbors and friends. People admired the way the dog helped Sammy move and the gentle bond they shared. Some even asked Rahim how they could get a trained dog like Bruno for their loved ones. Rahim felt proud, not only for his son's progress but also for the example of hope they were showing to others. Each day brought new challenges but also new victories. Sammy tried simple tasks like reaching for objects, feeding Bruno, or moving short distances independently. Bruno's guidance and support made each small achievement possible. Rahim realized that the accident had taken much, but it had also brought a new beginning, a chance for Sammy to rediscover life in a meaningful way. One afternoon, Rahim and Sammy were sitting in the garden enjoying the soft breeze. Bruno ran around playfully, bringing a stick to Sammy's hands. Sammy laughed freely, a sound that had been missing for many months. Rahim watched, feeling a quiet miracle unfolding before his eyes. Bruno had not only given physical support, but had also brought back the joy and innocence that Sammy needed most. Rahim knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. Sammy still faced challenges and there would be days of frustration and struggle, but with Bruno by his side, every day held promise and hope. The boy had discovered a friend who never judged, never tired, and always cared. The father had found a way to restore happiness in his son's life through love, patience, and the loyalty of a remarkable dog. As the sun set, Rahim looked at Sammy and Bruno. The golden light made Bruno's coat shine, and Sammy's eyes sparkled with excitement. He realized that together they had started a journey of courage, friendship, and miracles. Rahim smiled softly, knowing that the best was yet to come. The bond between a boy and his dog had already begun to transform their lives, and there was no limit to the hope, joy, and love they could share. The morning sun filtered gently through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Sammy woke up slowly, feeling a sense of excitement he had not felt in months. He turned toward Bruno, who was already awake, stretching and wagging his tail. Sammy smiled, reaching out to pat his loyal friend. Bruno leaned closer, resting his head on Sammy's lap. It had become their usual morning greeting, a silent exchange of love and trust. Rahim entered the room carrying a tray of breakfast. He smiled at the sight of his son and the dog together. "Good morning, my champions," he said, setting the tray on the table. Sammy laughed softly and Bruno barked lightly, his tail wagging in agreement. Rahim felt a quiet happiness that had been missing for a long time. The bond between Sammy and Bruno had grown stronger with every passing day, and it was clear that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. After breakfast, Rahim suggested a new challenge. He had read about exercises that could help stimulate muscle movement, even for someone who had been paralyzed. Today he wanted Sammy to try standing with Bruno's help. Sammy looked nervous. Standing had seemed impossible and he feared falling. But Bruno's calm presence gave him courage. The dog sat attentively beside him, waiting for the signal. Rahim positioned Sammy's wheelchair near a supportive bar he had installed at home. "Bruno will help you," Rahim said gently. Sammy nodded. He placed his hands on the bar, feeling the cool metal under his palms. Bruno moved behind him, pressing his strong body against Sammy's back, ready to support him. With a deep breath, Sammy pushed himself up slowly. Bruno adjusted carefully, keeping his balance and encouraging Sammy with soft nudges. Step by step, the boy rose higher than he had thought possible. Rahim's heart swelled with emotion. He watched as his son, supported by the dog, managed to stand upright for a few precious seconds. Sammy's face lit up with surprise and joy. "I'm standing, Bruno." "I'm really standing," he exclaimed. Bruno barked softly, his tail wagging furiously, celebrating the achievement with Sammy. Rahim felt tears welling in his eyes. This small victory was monumental. It was the first sign that miracles were possible with patience, determination, and the unwavering support of a loyal friend. Over the next few days, Rahim incorporated more exercises into their routine. Sammy practiced standing, balancing, and moving slightly with Bruno's assistance. Every session, Bruno provided encouragement in his own quiet way. Sometimes he placed his paw gently on Sammy's lap for support. Sometimes he nudged objects closer so Sammy could reach them. The dog's intelligence and attentiveness were remarkable, and Rahim realized that Bruno was not just helping physically, but also inspiring Sammy emotionally. One afternoon, Rahim suggested taking Bruno and Sammy to the park again. The boy had gained confidence, and Rahim thought fresh air and sunlight would be beneficial. As they entered the park, children playing nearby stopped to watch them. Sammy's wheelchair rolled smoothly along the path, and Bruno walked beside him, attentive and alert. The dog's presence gave Sammy courage to interact with the world around him. Sammy waved at the children, who waved back enthusiastically. For the first time since the accident, Sammy felt like he belonged outside. He could laugh, move, and experience life in ways he had thought were gone forever. Bruno's companionship had made the impossible seem possible. Rahim followed closely behind, watching the quiet miracle unfold before his eyes. Later, they found a quiet spot near a small pond. Sammy leaned back in his wheelchair, letting Bruno rest beside him. "Bruno, do you think I can do more?" he asked softly. Bruno licked his hand, a gesture that seemed to say, "Yes, you can." Rahim smiled at the exchange. The boy's faith in the dog was growing, and with it, his own belief in himself. The next challenge Rahim had planned involved a set of small steps at home. He had built a low staircase in the living room, designed to be safe for Sammy to practice moving with Bruno's assistance. At first, Sammy was hesitant. The steps seemed intimidating and he worried about losing balance. Bruno sensed his fear and stayed close, pressing his body gently against Sammy's side. The dog's calm energy gave Sammy courage to try. With Rahim guiding from behind, Sammy placed his hands on the steps and began to move forward slowly. Bruno adjusted carefully, helping balance him. Step by step, Sammy moved upward. His muscles trembled, but Bruno's support never wavered. When he reached the top, he looked at Bruno with wide eyes. "I did it, Bruno!" "I really did it." The dog barked softly, tail wagging, celebrating Sammy's success. Rahim felt tears streaming down his face. This was more than progress. It was hope becoming reality. Over the following days, Sammy's confidence continued to grow. He attempted small movements independently, always with Bruno nearby. The dog's presence seemed to awaken something inside the boy, a determination he had thought lost forever. Rahim encouraged him gently, celebrating every success, no matter how small. Sammy's laughter returned fully, filling the house with warmth and life. One evening, Rahim had an idea. He wanted to test Sammy's abilities in a fun and motivating way. He set up a small obstacle course in the backyard, using cones, soft mats, and objects to maneuver around. Sammy was nervous at first. "It looks difficult," he said, glancing at Bruno. Bruno stood patiently, his eyes focused on Sammy as if saying, "You can do this." Rahim explained the course. Sammy needed to move his wheelchair along the path, reach for certain objects, and rely on Bruno for support when needed. The boy nodded. With a deep breath, he began. Bruno moved alongside him, guiding and helping as necessary. Whenever Sammy felt unsure, Bruno nudged him gently or steadied him with his body. Step by step, they completed the course. Sammy's eyes sparkled with pride. "We did it, Bruno. We really did it," he exclaimed. Bruno barked softly, wagging his tail in celebration. Rahim felt a deep joy. He realized that these small achievements were more than exercises. They were moments of courage, trust, and miracles. As the days passed, Sammy and Bruno grew inseparable. Bruno was more than a dog. He was a teacher, a friend, and a source of courage. Sammy learned that even though his legs could not carry him fully, he could still experience life in a meaningful way with support, love, and determination. Rahim watched silently, grateful for the extraordinary bond that had changed his son's life. One night, as they sat together in the living room, Rahim looked at Sammy and Bruno. The boy rested his head against the dog, who lay quietly, eyes half closed but alert. "I think Bruno is the best thing that ever happened to me," Sammy whispered. Rahim smiled, feeling the weight of months of worry lifting from his heart. He realized that the dog's presence had brought back more than movement. It had brought back hope, courage, and a sense of joy that could not be measured. Rahim also noticed that Sammy's interactions with the world had changed. He spoke more freely with friends, shared stories with neighbors, and even started thinking about returning to school. Bruno's support had given him the confidence to dream again. The boy understood that limitations were not the end, but challenges that could be overcome with patience, effort, and love. One afternoon, Rahim decided to take Sammy and Bruno to a nearby open field. The space was wide and safe, perfect for new exercises. Rahim helped Sammy into his wheelchair and positioned Bruno beside him. The boy looked around with curiosity and excitement. "What will we do today, Dad?" he asked. Rahim smiled. "Today we try something special. You will need to trust Bruno, and he will guide you." Sammy nodded, trusting both his father and his loyal companion. With Rahim's instructions, Sammy began practicing small steps with Bruno's assistance. The dog stayed close, his body providing balance and confidence. Step by step, the boy moved forward. Suddenly, something incredible happened. Sammy managed to rise slightly without fully relying on the wheelchair, supported mainly by Bruno's strong and steady body. His face lit up with amazement. "Bruno, I am standing. I'm really standing." The dog barked softly, tail wagging as if sharing in the miracle. Rahim could hardly believe his eyes. This was not just progress, it was the first real miracle since the accident. Rahim knelt beside his son, tears in his eyes. "You did it, Sammy. This is amazing. Bruno helped you, but it is your courage that made it happen." Sammy hugged Bruno tightly, feeling the warmth and strength of his friend. The boy realized that with determination, support, and love, nothing was impossible. That evening, as they returned home, Sammy sat quietly in the back of the car, Bruno resting his head beside him. Rahim glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing the joy and pride in his son's eyes. He knew that the journey was far from over, but the first miracle had happened. Sami had experienced what he thought was impossible, and Bruno had shown him the way. The bond between Sami and Bruno had become extraordinary. It was a story of courage, trust, and unwavering love. Rahim understood that miracles were not just about extraordinary powers, but about belief, support, and the gentle guidance of a loyal friend. Together, Sami and Bruno had begun a journey that would change their lives forever. The morning sun shone brightly, spilling warm light across the Rahim household. Sami was awake, his eyes full of energy and excitement. Bruno was already moving quietly around the room, stretching and wagging his tail. Sami reached out immediately, hugging his loyal friend. The bond between them had grown stronger with every day, and the boy felt confident knowing Bruno would always be by his side. Rahim entered the room with a tray of breakfast. "Good morning, champions," he said, smiling at the sight of his son and the dog together. Sami laughed softly and Bruno barked lightly, tail wagging in agreement. Rahim felt a deep sense of happiness that he had not felt in months. Seeing Sami regain hope and joy was the most precious reward. After breakfast, Rahim suggested they try a new exercise. Today, he wanted Sami to move independently for a short distance using his wheelchair, while Bruno offered guidance and support. Sami's heart raced. He had never attempted this alone before. Bruno sensed his uncertainty and stayed close, pressing his body gently against Sami's side as if to say, "You can do this." With a deep breath, Sami began moving forward slowly. Bruno walked beside him, alert and steady, nudging the wheelchair when necessary. Step by step, Sami moved farther than he had before. His confidence grew with every inch. Rahim followed closely behind, cheering softly. This small achievement felt monumental. Sami's laughter echoed through the room as he realized that he was capable of more than he had believed. Later in the day, Rahim decided to introduce a new challenge. He had prepared a small garden path with gentle slopes and turns. The goal was for Sami to move along the path with Bruno's assistance, navigating obstacles safely. Sami looked at the path and felt nervous, but Bruno stayed close, giving silent encouragement. "Remember, Sami," Rahim said softly. "Bruno is here with you. You can do it." Sami nodded, gripping the wheelchair handles tightly. With Bruno beside him, he began moving along the path. Bruno guided him carefully, ensuring balance and safety. The boy's determination grew stronger with every step. Rahim watched in awe. He knew that these moments were more than just exercises. They were building courage, independence, and trust. As the days passed, Sami's skills continued to improve. He could move more freely with Bruno's assistance, and his confidence in himself grew. The boy began to dream of walking again, imagining a future where he could play and explore without fear. Bruno's presence gave him hope and strength to believe that anything was possible. One afternoon, Rahim decided to test Sami's abilities in a fun and motivating way. He set up a small course in the backyard, using soft mats, cones, and objects to maneuver around. Sami was hesitant at first, but Bruno stayed close, ready to guide and support him. Rahim explained the course. Sami needed to move his wheelchair along the path, reach for certain objects, and rely on Bruno's guidance when necessary. The boy took a deep breath and began. Step by step, Sami moved through the course. Bruno adjusted carefully, nudging him gently when needed and keeping him balanced. Sami's confidence grew with each successful turn and maneuver. When he completed the course, he looked at Bruno with wide eyes. "We did it, Bruno. We really did it," he exclaimed. Bruno barked softly and wagged his tail, celebrating the achievement. Rahim felt tears of pride and joy fill his eyes. This was not just a simple exercise. It was a demonstration of courage, determination, and the incredible bond between a boy and his dog. That evening, Rahim and Sami sat together in the garden. Bruno rested nearby, his eyes alert and attentive. Sami spoke quietly, almost to himself. "I feel stronger, Dad. I think I can do more now." Rahim smiled, feeling hope swell in his heart. "You are stronger than you realize, Sami. Bruno has helped you, but it is your courage that has made this possible." Sami looked at Bruno, who wagged his tail as if understanding the words. The boy hugged the dog tightly, feeling the warmth and support of his loyal friend. The next morning, Rahim suggested a more challenging exercise. He had prepared a small ramp in the living room, slightly higher than before. The goal was for Sammy to move up the ramp with Bruno's assistance, testing balance, strength, and confidence. Sammy looked at the ramp nervously. "It looks difficult," he said. Bruno stepped forward, nudging him gently. The dog's calm presence reassured Sammy, giving him the courage to try. With Rahim guiding from behind, Sammy placed his hands on the ramp and began moving slowly. Bruno stayed close, providing support and encouragement. Step by step, Sammy advanced, muscles trembling but determination shining in his eyes. When he reached the top, he turned and smiled at Bruno. "I did it. I really did it." The dog barked softly, tail wagging, celebrating the victory. Rahim felt tears streaming down his face. This was a breakthrough moment, a sign that real miracles were beginning to unfold. Over the next few days, Sammy's progress continued. He practiced standing with Bruno's support, moving independently in the wheelchair and navigating small obstacles. Every achievement, no matter how small, filled him with pride and joy. Rahim watched silently, amazed at the transformation. The boy who had once been quiet and sad was now filled with energy, laughter, and confidence. Bruno's guidance had been extraordinary, but the true miracle was Sammy's courage and determination. One afternoon, Rahim decided to take Sammy and Bruno to a nearby open field. The wide space offered an opportunity for new exercises and challenges. Sammy sat in his wheelchair at the edge of the field, while Bruno stood beside him, alert and ready. Rahim encouraged Sammy to try moving without relying fully on the wheelchair. The boy felt nervous, but Bruno's calm presence reassured him. With Bruno's guidance, Sammy began moving slowly, supported by the dog's steady body. Step by step, he advanced, muscles trembling but spirit determined. Suddenly, something incredible happened. Sammy managed to rise slightly without fully relying on the wheelchair, balanced mainly by Bruno's support. His face lit up with amazement. "Bruno, I am standing. I am really standing." The dog barked softly, wagging his tail, celebrating the miraculous moment. Rahim could hardly believe his eyes. He ran to his son, tears of joy streaming down his face. "You did it, Sammy. This is amazing. Bruno helped, but it is your courage that made this possible." Sammy hugged Bruno tightly, feeling the warmth, strength, and love of his loyal friend. The boy realized that with determination, support, and belief, nothing was impossible. That evening, as they returned home, Sammy sat quietly in the car, Bruno resting his head beside him. Rahim glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing the joy and pride in his son's eyes. He knew that this was not just a single moment of success, but a turning point in their journey. Sammy had experienced a real miracle, and Bruno had shown him the way. The bond between Sammy and Bruno had become extraordinary. The dog was no longer just a helper. He was a guide, a friend, and a symbol of hope. Rahim understood that miracles were not just about extraordinary events, they were about trust, love, and the courage to try. Together, Sammy and Bruno had started a journey that would continue to change their lives forever. As night fell, Rahim watched his son and Bruno in the living room. Sammy was lying on the couch, resting his head on the dog's soft fur. Bruno stayed quietly alert and protective. Rahim felt gratitude fill his heart. The accident had taken so much from their lives, but Bruno had brought back something more important than they had lost: hope, courage, and joy. The father realized that the journey ahead would have challenges, but with Bruno by Sammy's side, every day held promise. The boy had discovered that he could face the world again, and Bruno would always guide him. Rahim smiled softly, knowing that the first miracle was only the beginning of an extraordinary story of love, determination, and friendship. The morning air was crisp, carrying the soft sounds of birds singing outside the Rahim household. Sammy woke early, his heart filled with anticipation. He looked at Bruno, who was already awake, stretching and wagging his tail. The boy smiled, feeling a sense of courage he had not known for months. Bruno had been by his side through every challenge, every small victory, and every moment of doubt. Today felt different. Today felt extraordinary. Rahim entered the room with a tray of breakfast. "Good morning, champions," he said, smiling at the sight of his son and the dog together. Sammy laughed softly and Bruno barked lightly in response. Rahim felt a deep sense of pride. The bond between his son and Bruno had grown stronger with every passing day, and he could see that Sammy's confidence was blossoming. After breakfast, Rahim suggested a new challenge. "Sammy," he said gently, "today we try something very special. You will try standing and walking a few steps with Bruno's help. You are ready and I know you can do it." Sammy looked at his father nervously. Walking had seemed impossible for so long. But Bruno's calm presence reassured him. The dog stood beside him, pressing his body gently against Sammy's back, ready to guide him. Sammy took a deep breath and placed his hands on the supportive bars Rahim had installed in the living room. Bruno stayed close, his eyes focused and attentive. With a small push from his legs and support from Bruno, Sammy lifted himself slightly. Step by step he began to rise higher. His muscles trembled, but determination shone in his eyes. Bruno adjusted his position carefully, steadying Sammy and encouraging him with soft nudges. Rahim held his breath as he watched his son. Every second felt monumental. Sammy moved forward slowly, leaning on Bruno for support. The dog's strength and loyalty gave him the courage to continue. Step by step, Sammy took more control, moving carefully across the room. His face lit up with amazement. "I am moving."
"Bruno, I am moving!"
he exclaimed. Bruno barked softly, tail wagging furiously, sharing in the triumph. This was more than just progress. It was a miracle unfolding. Sammy had moved more than he ever thought possible since the accident. Rahim's heart swelled with emotion. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "You are doing it, Sammy. This is amazing." Sammy looked at his father, then at Bruno, and realized that he had accomplished something extraordinary. The boy felt a mix of joy, pride, and awe. Rahim encouraged Sammy to continue, and the boy took more steps, each one stronger than the last. Bruno stayed close, his presence steady and unwavering. The room was filled with a sense of wonder and triumph. Sammy laughed with delight, realizing that the impossible was becoming possible. His legs, supported by determination, patience, and Bruno's guidance, were carrying him. The miracle was happening before their eyes. After several minutes, Sammy reached the end of the living room, where Rahim stood waiting with open arms. He embraced his son tightly, tears of joy rolling down his cheeks. "You did it, Sammy. You really did it," Rahim exclaimed. Sammy hugged Bruno at the same time, feeling the warmth, strength, and love of his loyal friend. "We did it, Bruno. You helped me," he said. Bruno barked softly and wagged his tail, celebrating the success. The days that followed were filled with practice, laughter, and small achievements. Sammy continued to improve, taking steps with Bruno's assistance and relying less on the wheelchair. Each day his confidence grew and his belief in himself strengthened. Bruno remained by his side, a constant source of courage, support, and love. Rahim watched silently, amazed at the transformation. His son, who had once felt trapped in sadness, was now discovering the world anew, filled with hope and joy. One afternoon, Rahim suggested taking Sammy and Bruno to the park. The boy had grown strong enough to attempt short walks with Bruno's support outside. The sun shone warmly and the air was fresh. Sammy's wheelchair moved beside him as Bruno walked attentively, guiding and protecting him. Children in the park noticed the extraordinary bond between the boy and his dog. They watched as Sammy carefully took steps with Bruno's help, his eyes shining with determination. Sammy's courage inspired others. Parents whispered about the boy who was learning to walk again with the help of his loyal dog. Some came closer, wanting to know more about Bruno and how he had changed Sammy's life. Rahim felt proud, not only for his son's progress but also for the example of hope they were showing to others. Sammy smiled at the onlookers, feeling proud of what he had achieved and grateful for Bruno's unwavering support. As the sun began to set, Rahim and Sammy returned home. Sammy felt tired but fulfilled. He sat quietly, holding Bruno close. "I never thought I could do this, Dad," he said softly. Rahim smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his son's forehead. "You did it, Sammy. Bruno helped, but your courage and determination made this possible. You have proven that nothing is impossible when you believe in yourself." Sammy hugged Bruno tightly, feeling a deep connection with his friend. The following days brought more progress. Sammy practiced walking short distances independently, with Bruno nearby for guidance. Each small step was a victory. He gained more strength, balance, and confidence. Rahim documented every achievement, taking note of each milestone. He knew that the journey was far from over, but he also knew that miracles had already begun to unfold in their lives. One morning, Rahim decided to test Sammy's independence further. He set up a small path in the backyard, slightly challenging but safe. Sammy was nervous but excited. Bruno stayed beside him, eyes focused and attentive. "Remember, Sammy, you can do this," Rahim said softly. The boy nodded, gripping the wheelchair handles, then slowly moved forward with Bruno's support. Step by step, Sammy advanced along the path. Bruno nudged and steadied him when necessary, always alert and careful. Rahim followed closely, watching with pride and awe. For the first time in months, Sammy was moving with confidence, taking charge of his own steps. His laughter filled the garden, a sound that had been missing for too long. Finally, Sammy reached the end of the path. He stood upright for a few moments, holding on to Bruno and Rahim for balance. Tears of joy streamed down Rahim's face. "You did it, Sammy. This is truly miraculous," he whispered. Sammy hugged Bruno tightly, feeling the love, strength, and support of his loyal companion. He realized that with determination, patience, and guidance, he could overcome challenges that once seemed impossible. From that day on, Sammy's life changed in remarkable ways. He continued practicing daily, gaining strength and independence. Bruno remained his faithful guide, loyal friend, and source of courage. Rahim watched with pride as his son grew more confident, smiling more, laughing freely and embracing life with a sense of hope and joy that had been absent for months. Neighbors and friends marveled at the boy's progress and the extraordinary bond between him and Bruno. Some came to ask how a dog could have such a profound impact. Rahim simply smiled and said, "Bruno gave hope, courage, and love. Together we discovered that miracles happen when you believe and never give up." Sammy realized that the accident, which had once felt like the end of his world, had also opened a door to a new beginning. He understood that courage, determination, and support could turn impossibilities into miracles. Bruno had not only helped him walk again, but had also given him the gift of confidence, joy, and friendship. That evening, as the sun set and the sky glowed in shades of gold, Sammy sat with Bruno by his side. Rahim watched silently, feeling grateful beyond words. He knew that the journey ahead would have challenges, but with Bruno by Sammy's side, every day held promise and hope. Sammy looked at his father and smiled. "I can do anything, Dad, because Bruno is with me." Rahim hugged his son tightly, feeling a deep sense of peace and happiness. The miraculous bond between Sammy and Bruno had changed their lives forever. The dog had given more than support. He had given courage, inspiration, and love. Sammy had discovered that even in the face of great challenges, hope and determination could create miracles. Together, the father, the son, and the dog had proven that love, trust, and unwavering support could overcome any obstacle. And so, in the quiet glow of the evening, Sammy, Rahim, and Bruno sat together, united by an extraordinary bond. They had faced hardship, embraced courage, and witnessed a true miracle. Their story was one of hope, love, and determination, a story that would inspire everyone who saw the power of friendship and the strength of the human spirit guided by the loyalty of a faithful dog.